Good afternoon. My name is Vikram Rajan, and welcome to another episode of LinkedIn for Lawyers, true stories of client acquisition told by attorneys. Again, my name is Vic, and I am the co-founder of Video Socials. We are a business community of attorneys, but also accountants, consultants, coaches who come together in our video blogging clubs and get their video blogs recorded together, fun and done. And a lot of our members also have video podcasts like this one, so you can be listening to it through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify, or other podcast platforms. But also you can watch this podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, and LinkedIn just about every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern as we are streaming live right now. And it's really interesting. The reason I started this show is to really learn from attorneys who are doing it and getting business from LinkedIn. So this isn't really me pontificating of how great LinkedIn is. We're going to hear from actual attorneys. So you can go to past episodes and subscribe to get notified of future episodes. And today we have Mr. Andy Brownstein with us to give us a little bit of insight into his practice, his firm, what he does with LinkedIn, and how he's actually gotten business from LinkedIn. So I'm looking forward to you hearing from Andy. Andy, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Vikram.
So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your practice within the firm and what you guys do?
Sure. Again, my name is Andy Brownstein. I'm a partner at a firm called Green Herlocker in Richmond, Virginia. It's a smaller firm. There's about a dozen of us. The firm got its start with two attorneys, Brian Green and Eric Herlocker, who specialized and do continue to specialize in energy law. Brian is a specialist in regulatory and compliance and some litigation in that area, represents a lot of independent power producers as well as related parties. My partner, Eric, is a longtime transactional attorney in that area. We represent a lot of renewable energy developers, ancillary parties in that process. We do everything from the land use work from the very beginning in solar and wind, even hydro, through entitlement work, financing work, and ultimately, in many cases, selling these projects on to other developers. Eric also has a general practice as well that takes up some of his time. My practice, I've been with the firm for almost 3 years. I started in private practice with a big law firm. Originally, I was in the investment banking business before I went to law school. After a few years at a big law firm, decided that wasn't for me. Went back into the banking world in the private equity business. Worked as an associate in a small private equity firm based here in Richmond.
Were you in the energy sector?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I've learned that more recently, frankly.
Sure.
Went to work after that for a large Fortune 500 company based here in Richmond that was in the real estate services business, sort of combining my background in investment banking and corporate finance with the transactional background that I had in
Sure.
practice, and really helped run their corporate development operation for about 10 years. That company went out of business actually in the downturn in 08 and 09. And I started a business with some ex-colleagues of mine to do some of the work that we used to do at the large company, primarily in the business of transaction services related work for commercial real estate transactions. So environmental work, engineering work, surveying, zoning, really everything that you would need to help get a transaction done, other than basically lending people money and being their lawyer and being their broker. So we came in and supplied all those different kinds of services. And I served as both CFO and general counsel for that business for a long time. About 3 years ago, I left that company. My partners bought me out. And Brian Green, who I mentioned before, who I've known basically since college, said to me, "Hey, what are you going to be doing? Because I think you'd be great if you wanted to get back into private practice."
Right.
I hadn't really considered that, but I came in and helped them out for a while, kind of on a part-time contract basis, and realized the private practice of law had both changed in my mind. Working for a smaller firm was also a much different setup.
Sure.
And I myself had changed. I was a different, kind of a different person than I was 20 some years ago when I left private practice.
So talk to us about that, if I can interrupt the timeline. What do you mean that private practice changed? How did he see it?
Well, I think, a lot of it has to do with the types of clients that we were working with. So when I say private practice, probably a better way of putting it is that working in private practice for a smaller firm and the types of clients that that we were already working for, both in the energy side and the general corporate world that we have here at Green Herlocker, it was a very different kind of environment, very different client-lawyer relationship. It fit my personality better. And I think I was just more mature and understood myself about what it is that I wanted and how I could serve clients, and the, sort of the wisdom of experience, I guess, for lack of a better term,
Sure.
that, having been through the fire in a variety of different businesses, going from private practice.
Right, on the you were on the other side of the table, so to speak, right?
What I tell people is, basically, I've been on every single side of a transaction, right? I've been a buyer, I've been a seller, I've worked on financing, I've worked on, I've been a startup, I've done a startup. So when I talk to somebody, I think I can bring to bear a lot of different perspectives, and I think that really has helped me. So here at Green Herlocker, I do help a lot and do a lot of energy work a lot with our energy transactional work. But I have, my own practice as well that I've brought to bear, which is more of a general corporate and transactional practice, and some real estate as well. So I do some commercial real estate transactional work, and frankly, energy. There's a lot of real estate transactional work related to that.
Right.
And then I do a fair amount of startup work because like I said, I have some background in that, having started my own company. I've worked with a number of companies over the last few years who've been referred to me. I've been very, blessed with a number of great referral sources to help start companies from scratch, help people jump in and help people do financings, venture capital related deals, and help shepherd those newer companies, along their path.
Which also merges background, right? You have the PE background.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the PE background that I worked on, the fund I worked on wasn't a venture capital fund. It was really more of a buyout fund, traditional LBO type buyout fund. But in many cases, the types of things that you're looking at, the types of ways you're looking at diligence is certainly similar. The transactional documents are very different, but the process and the relationship with the client can be very similar as well in terms of being more than just a scribe, but really trying to be more of an advisor. I've been out of law school almost 30 years. So it's like that farmer's insurance commercial, right? Like we know a lot because we've seen a lot, I feel like I've seen a lot.
Well, I think that's a great way that you put it, that you want to be, and that you are more than just a scribe and more of that advisor.
I mean, there are clients who want that. I mean, there are clients who are very, very experienced, more experienced than me, and they know exactly what they want. And I'm happy to do that, But I do enjoy also working very much with people who are looking for how to shape and sort of guide their journey. Right. And there are choices you have to make, and having someone help you with that, and even framing up questions that aren't part of what they're actually asking you necessarily to advise on can be.
And so you get to embody that role of a counselor and provide.
If they're asking for that, right?
Sure.
I mean, I try to, and I certainly try to show that, in places where it feels appropriate, that there are things they ought to be considering maybe that have nothing to do with the specific legal issue that we're tackling, that they need to think forward about, and
what role it plays.
I think there's value in that.
I think so too. That's tremendous. And I think it's great that you're able to bring all those perspectives and kind of marry it when appropriate for the client, and be that hands-on and really be their right-hand person beyond just a legal document. I think the fact that you're able to go above and beyond because of your experience and expertise, I think is tremendous, Andy. That's great.
Yeah, and I think, also coming back into private practice, I'll mention just briefly that the being able to learn again the way you do as a practicing attorney, just having to really learn new things all the time. I miss that, and it's when you're a young attorney, especially if you're working at a big law firm, you're drinking from a fire hose. So you don't get to sort of absorb it in the manner in which you'd like. You are learning a tremendous amount very quickly.
Sure.
But it isn't as easy to sort of have that perspective to sit back and say, man, I'm really building, sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey would say,
Right.
Now that I'm older, knock on wood, I'm not working, those kind of crazy first, second, third year associate hours at a big law firm. I can manage it. Right. But I really, looking back and thinking about it over the last few years, I really have enjoyed it, really learning businesses and like the energy, I've learned a lot about the energy business in the last few years. I got a long way to go compared to some of my partners.
Sure. But yeah, talk about getting right into it. So how does LinkedIn fit into all this? When did you start getting active on
Well, I
LinkedIn?
mean, like a lot of professionals, I've been on LinkedIn,
Sure.
forever and a day.
Yeah, it's kind of like
And
name only for a lot of people,
yeah, I mean, I
literally.
certainly had sort of fits and spurts of posting
Hmm.
and experimented with using some of the third party tools to try and schedule posts of links of interesting
Okay,
things that I had
sure.
seen.
Like what
And
kind of tools were you using?
I mean, I suppose we tried, Buffer, we
Sure,
tried Hootsuite.
sure.
I tried all those things,
Okay.
and it was, marginally successful and accepting, connection requests from all over the place and building a network. But I will be frank to say that I wouldn't necessarily have looked at it as being um, particularly fruitful in terms of building a network and building clientele at all.
Yeah.
Um, and only in the last year or so have I really reapproached that in a more thoughtful and intelligent way. Not by myself, with some guidance for sure.
Which I want to hear about that guidance also. And what was the trigger? Was it just like COVID and you were,
Well, yes and
can't
no.
meet
I
with
mean, is
people
it
face
okay
to
just
face?
to
Like,
mention
what was the impetus?
mentioning names and people and who helped me? Is that all right?
Oh
Can
yeah,
we
sure,
do this? Yeah,
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely. We love talking about
So I
other
mean,
marketing professionals and
yeah, sure. So my brother-in-law is a business coach
but
and
even
business
more so that
consultant.
is your brother-in-law, Andy. Yeah, but
And,
go on.
and
Yeah,
and so he turned me on to a gentleman named Mark Halpert, who
sure. I know Mark very well.
okay, yeah. So
Oh, that's great.
Mark's actually the person I think recommended me
Okay,
to
good.
you.
Okay, good. All right. So Mark put us together. Mark Halpern put us together. That's
Right. So
excellent. Shout out to
I
Mark.
got
Yeah.
Mark and engaged Mark to help me rebuild my profile and to
Oh,
think
good.
about how I was approaching the marketplace a little bit. And
Good.
that was very helpful. And there
So
was
you
definitely
met Mark, who's up here in the New York area. He's
right through my brother-in-law who's in Florida.
yeah.
They had a relationship, and I don't know how it
About.
came to
And
be.
what's your brother-in-law's name if you want to name
Oh,
drop?
Jay
Like
Shear. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned Jay Shear.
Jay
And
Shear. Yeah. Sure.
Jay Scott Consulting is the name of
Yes.
his company, and
Yeah.
he has a pretty popular video podcast that he
Yeah.
does. And so Jay hooked me up with Mark. Mark helped me with my profile.
Right.
And here at the firm, we
But
had
and let me interrupt you, Andy. So what even prompted that? Was it Jay that said, "Hey, Andy, you got to do something with this LinkedIn thing," or was it you going to him, or how did that come up? Like that's not normal, Thanksgiving
well, I mean,
conversation.
we just talked about what his
Okay.
business, what I was doing, and just I
Yeah.
think out of the blue, honestly, I don't know that there was any impetus other
Okay.
than
Good.
Jay
So it's
said,
proactive referral.
"I think you should meet this guy Mark. He might be
Yeah.
helpful for you." He wasn't
Cool.
suggesting necessarily that what I was doing on LinkedIn wasn't worthwhile.
Right.
And I'm not sure that Jay specifically holds him out as sort of a LinkedIn specialist per se, but for whatever reason, he had built a
But Mark
relationship.
is, as
Yeah,
you
Mark
know, as
certainly
you
is.
now
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
right, working with
yeah.
him. So he
So,
is. Yeah. So you were saying, so Jay
so
brought,
Jay hooked me up with Mark,
connected you guys together. That's a great
right?
proactive type referral. Like
And we
you
talked for a
never
bit.
know.
I did my diligence. I talked to some referrals
Sure.
that he had worked with before.
Right.
And so, I engaged Mark to help me rebuild my profile. We had some coach, essentially it's coaching, a
Yeah.
series of
He's great.
sessions.
Sure.
And we rebuilt my profile from scratch, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
And I think I was getting more take up of views and connection requests and so forth. And then here at Green Herlocker, we have a marketing professional that we work with who feels very strongly about how LinkedIn is a real linchpin in today's environment on how to build a practice, establish a brand. His name's Jay Harrington. I don't know if you know Jay.
I don't know Jay, but
Okay,
I
so
hope he will.
Harrington Communications.
No, is he in-house? Is he like a marketing director
No,
within the
no, no,
firm, or
no,
he's
no.
out?
He's
He's a
outsourced.
consultant. Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, at our size, we're not necessarily ready to hire somebody
Sure.
full time. Although
Sure.
we could, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
haven't.
But that's great. So Jay
So
Harrington, you said?
Jay really encouraged all of us to rethink how we were using LinkedIn, how to post, what to post, when to post, really getting granular on what we were doing, trying to use the various tools. And I've slowly, over the last, call it 3-4 months, tried to implement a variety of those things in terms of what I'm putting out on LinkedIn, shifting away from, just here's an interesting link to more original, authentic, individualized content that I'm drafting myself and just sort of putting myself out there, both in terms of showing some expertise where possible.
Sure.
And that includes, writing actually using the LinkedIn articles, as well as trying to post, I say every day, but I will be frank and say I have not succeeded I say every business day, but even then I haven't succeeded at that goal of being every business day, but most business days, writing something of substance, whether it's a personal observation, whether it's something of legal expertise, something funny, just anecdotal, just, it's interesting. I find it very interesting what resonates and what doesn't. It's
so real, which I want to hear about. So let's parse that out. So 3 out of the 5 days, is that fair? Like maybe 2 out of the 5, like 2 or 3 out of the 5 days, in terms of the habit of like what you're blogging essentially on LinkedIn.
Yeah, some days it's all 5 days, and some days it's maybe twice or 3 times. If only
that's tremendous. That is a tremendous habit.
Something has come up, right? Although there is certainly sometimes I feel like I'm it's a dry well. Like I got nothing, And even Jay has encouraged us to think about it differently. Like don't try and come in and write something every morning. Do it over the weekend, or you have to train yourself that you have a kernel of an idea, but you don't have time to write it. You got to write yourself a note saying, oh, you got to write about this when you have a chance. Right. And so you have like a list of potential topics, and some will pan out and some won't. And Jay will help us with those. Jay will also help.
And so do you write it directly native on LinkedIn publishing, or do you write it in like Word or?
I tend to write it in Word because I like to do it. Sometimes I even dictate it.
Okay.
And then I'll go back and edit it. I think that, the spell checking and all the tools in Word, and then I just copy it into LinkedIn and post it right there.
Do you also publish it on like in the firm's website? Like the firm has a blog?
Articles we do. I won't necessarily take it just an individual.
Okay. And how long are your quote unquote daily posts?
I try to make them longer.
Okay.
Basically because the research appears to show that longer posts tend to get better take up.
Yeah. So what does long mean? Like 1,000 words or 500 words?
There are some that are that long, but usually I would say probably 300 to 600 words, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. That's a good length.
Sometimes shorter, sometimes, I don't want to write long posts just to, write long posts, but if sometimes it takes longer, like this past week,
some topics warranted.
I'll give you an example. Like this past week, I did 3 posts all about founder stock restriction agreements.
Okay.
So it took 3 days. So I did, it could have been an article, but I wrote it as 3 posts. And maybe what I'll do is I'll take all 3 posts and stitch them together, re-edit it, and make it an article. But right now it's, I just wrote 3 posts on that. A couple months ago, I put a post up because I'm going to teach a class at University of Richmond Law School next year for the first time. So, I put a post up.
What's the topic? What's the topic of the class?
I just wrote that I was really interested and excited to do it and tell people why. And then I asked people, like, give me your tips. What should I know about teaching? If anybody's out there, tell me what you know.
Yeah.
So that got a lot of take up, and then I put up a picture of my dog one day because I was like, it's in a small firm, bring your dog to work. It's great. You work at home, you're hanging out with your dog, and man, the picture of my dog went a long way.
That's cheating. I think in marketing, what we call posting photos of your pets and kids, that's cheating in the content marketing.
Yeah, he's right. But it was a good post. People, I got a lot of take up on that.
So what other things have Jay been encouraging you to do so you've implemented a relatively good habit of, I'll call that blogging.
Well, I want to work on video. Video is really hard for me, just doing individual little, minute long, 2 minute long, videos.
All right.
It's a comfort level that you have to get to. Talking to you is easy, right? I mean, this is
that's why we created video socials. Yeah, I know what you mean, Andy. So every one of our clients, because we have a blogging company, so every one of our clients, we need to pull into the world of video blogging, and none of them wanted to do it. And this was before COVID, so now now everyone has to be on Zoom and all that. But back then, this is a year and a half ago, when we started video socials, it was, I want to say, February of 2019, and so we had like maybe a year before COVID really hit us, and we had to figure out a way to get them to be comfortable. And these are all very seasoned professionals, right? I mean,
the comfort level is, I have the comfort level. I just don't know, like I'm even more so than writing. I don't know entirely what it is I want to say. And that's the harder part.
Yeah, and so we said, look, let's just do these Zoom meetings. And back then, no one knew what Zoom was, but we have these video blogging clubs where it
Yeah,
becomes
and you
like
can cut it
conversational.
up and slice it up and paste it.
Correct.
That's a good way of
Correct.
creating content, I think. I
It
might be
becomes really,
better at
really
that.
easy, really fun. People get to know each other. It's kind of like a networking group, but it's built upon topics as opposed to like an elevator pitch or something. These are more substantive blogs, and people are talking it out very conversationally with
I
their small
absolutely, yeah.
audience.
I think that's probably a really
Yeah, you
effective
should come
way.
on. It's a lot of fun, and you'll see people literally getting their video blog recorded in real time. And yeah, in the beginning, some people are more nervous than others, but after a while, like you were saying, it's conversation.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to do more of that.
Yeah,
I
cool.
want to do some things like this. For instance, I might do some things with my students next semester and just
Yeah,
ask them to come on and do a StreamYard type thing where,
right, right,
hey, let's talk about your law school experience and just
right,
chat.
right, exactly.
Might do that. And then I need to do better of writing articles. And then we might end up with
And you can
enough
start
content
stitching.
to do newsletters and so forth as well.
Good
So
for you.
there's a
Yeah.
whole,
So does the
series
firm
of
have
things
an
that
email newsletter? Do you guys
we
send
have
it
an
out?
email newsletter where we're repurposing content,
Good for you.
but
Yeah.
using the LinkedIn tool as well would be wise.
Would be excellent, right? You're bringing it all, and it's kind of the ricochet effect. That's cool. Has this panned out? Have you been able to get referrals? Have people referred you business? Clients come out of
Yes,
the woodwork? Yeah,
yes.
talk
I
to us
mean,
about that.
I have a very direct. You asked for a story. I have a
Yeah,
very
I want a
direct
story.
story.
So tell us how
I
this
mean,
has
I
actually
can't.
worked.
There's probably some indirect effect,
Sure.
but I know there's a direct effect. So I did a post, and this is one of the reasons why I've been staying with it is like it happened to me like within the first 3 weeks of like
Right.
doing this.
Yeah.
So I put a post up about how I had done a venture capital transaction for a client, and the other side of the deal was a very big law firm, like one of the three law firms you immediately think of when you think of venture capital work, and they were
Right.
representing the investor. So I'm thinking they're going to inundate me with, massive amounts of custom designed paper, so to speak. That's going to take me forever to look through, check it and everything else. And what they did is they basically used the National Venture Capital Association's form documents. Now, this is a firm that probably has their own templates for just about
Right.
everything.
Sure.
And I thought it was a really wise choice for them because it wasn't a large investment and the legal fees were going to be important. And, they're expensive. These guys,
Sure.
they're expensive. I'm not cheap, but I'm not what they cost.
Sure.
And so by using those forms, I was able to look at them and redline them against the base form, what they changed, what they didn't change. And those forms are great forms. I mean, they're annotated really, really well. There's a lot of information in the footnotes, a lot of references, a lot of background information. And so I wrote about that. And I wrote about how even if you're not doing a deal, you'd be well advised to read them and read the notes if you do this kind of work or if you're interested in this kind of area, because it's good learning as well.
Sure.
So I put that post up. I don't know, like 2 weeks later, a friend of mine called me, not a guy I do business with, but our kids go to school together and we live around the block from each other.
Yeah.
And he's in the biotech business. He's a CEO of a biotech company. And he told me that he was talking to another guy he knew who he didn't do business with, but was a friend who was in the middle of a transaction. And for a variety of reasons, which aren't worth going into, the legal team he was working with had to basically bail out. And he's stuck and he doesn't know what to do. And he said, and I read your post and I was thinking about it as I remembered when I was talking to him, hey, Andy does this kind of work.
Yeah.
I should have him talk to Andy. So he gave me his name. I called the guy. He lives, about an hour away from here.
Right.
And, we signed him up and I helped him finish his deal and he's very happy and he's sending me more work. And, it's like a real client. It's like, It's exactly what you want to see happen.
It's exactly what you want to see happen, right? You post something, it brings you back top of mind. It may be to someone that you've known for years.
It wasn't like he read the post and sent me a DM, right? I mean, It was like it was back there in the in the recesses of his mind.
Which is what word of mouth marketing is, right? I mean, it's not this random pitching to a stranger. Like it's especially with the LinkedIn type platform, it's keeping you top of mind or reminding people about the kind of work that you do.
Well, I know you were going to ask me that as a follow-up question later. You kind of stole my thunder, but that's very much what I think.
Do it. Say it.
Well, I mean, I think the point is that people aren't going to go to your blog every day, right? Yeah. The people who like LinkedIn, if they're already bought into the idea of LinkedIn, they're on it every day. And so it's dynamic, right? I mean, your feed changes. It's just, like all these social media apps. It's just a constantly changing feed of information. And if you're doing a good job and you can get your material into the feed, I say this with a little bit of grain of salt. It almost doesn't matter what you say, right? They're seeing you. They're seeing that you're there. You know, you're present. You're building a even subconscious,
sure,
familiarity, branding of yourself with them, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, saying something useful is obviously better, but there is this sort of like.
But even if it's a photo of your dog, it's
whatever. I mean, it's like the spinning wheel on, The Price is Right. The wheel just keeps turning around. It keeps turning around, and every so often the 100 comes up. The 100 comes up. The 100 comes up. Right? It's just like you're on there. You just keep coming up.
Yep.
A lot of people who watch this probably even older. It's like that old Seinfeld joke. He's in Costanza. He's in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Costanza, like the commercial.
Right.
Yeah, and it is a brain worm or of sorts, right? That is the concept of personal branding.
I mean, it sounds a little unseemly to say it that way, and I know arguably you should be selling yourself because you're a high quality, authentic human being, and obviously if someone's reading your material, hopefully they're getting that impression. But there certainly is also the value of just being present, right? Because they're not going to see your advertisement in the magazine anymore.
Right.
They're not going to go to your blog on your website. There's just too many hours in the day. There's not enough hours in the day to do all that. Right. I mean,
look, I mean, you bring up a great point, right? That I think what's different about LinkedIn than, let's say, the other social media, where it can be just pure personal branding and lack of substance, and it's just you're being seen. With LinkedIn, there's an expectation of professionalism. There's an expectation of some type of substance where you can't get away with the dog photos every day. Facebook, you can, right? I mean, if that's all you post, that's fine, right? That makes more sense, in fact. Is little short dog videos on TikTok.
Yeah, and I think that's substantive. Some people would have argued that Twitter could have been that, but it turned into this. It's just it's like a avalanche.
Sure.
Right. Whereas LinkedIn may not be an avalanche. Maybe it's a fast running stream, but it isn't. Just coming at you at like.
It's not coming at you to use the Firehose analogy that you did before that. Yeah, and I think because it's a slower moving stream, as a literal and figurative word, that it enables people, especially professionals, to spend a little bit more time, especially in the nooks and crannies, where with Twitter and even other social media, you almost have to be addicted to it, right? Like you're constantly, because if you're out of the flow, you're out of context.
Right.
With LinkedIn, it enables you to dip in every now and then.
Right.
So that's good. Any other anecdotes like that? Because I don't know.
That's the best anecdote. I mean, I've had some other things where people have called me.
Yeah.
But I can't tell for sure if
Right.
if they're calling me because they've seen me more recently and more frequently on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's probably the best example.
Well, this is good because, and look, obviously, as you said, you have it just a couple of days in. What was it, a couple of days or a couple of weeks in?
I would say probably a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks, right? So that's wonderful, positive reinforcement. So that's great. So then it just kind of re-edifies, the word and advice of the J's in your life and Mark in your life of kind of, hey, Andy, you should do this. And then you're now able to kind of share an anecdote where it actually did pan out. So that's wonderful. We're going to take a quick break where I'm going to show a commercial. But when we come back, I'd love to hear what you really love about LinkedIn and then something that you don't really love about LinkedIn. And then we can kind of find out how we can get a hold of you and stuff like that. So
sure.
Do you want your own podcast like this one? My team will do all the grunt work for you. Just show up, smile, and enjoy talking to your potential clients and referral relationships. Go to videosocials.net/govip to watch our 9-minute webinar for all the details. Are you a busy lawyer, coach, consultant like me? You should have a podcast done for you to get you more clients, impress your colleagues, and it becomes your perpetual referrals flywheel. We find you the right guests. We schedule your guests, handle all the podcast tech, get you into Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and more. Done for you. Go to videosocials.net/govip to watch our 9-minute webinar for all the details. Now back to the show.
And back to Andy Brownstein. To that point, I'll give another plug for our listeners and our viewers. If anyone listening and watching likes the world of podcasts and also likes to get interviewed as a guest expert on podcasts, this podcast is very specific to lawyers who get business from LinkedIn. But we put together monthly networking events where people get to meet other show hosts, live streamers, podcast hosts, etc. So you can go over to videosocials.net/show hosts. The next one is January 27th. Our first one was actually beginning of December, where there were over 100 participants. We already have about 70 or so registered for January 27th. So that'll be another fun networking event if you like networking with podcast hosts. And if you happen to be a podcast host yourself, you'll fit right in. Andy, as we conclude, share with us something that you really love about LinkedIn, and then you can even segue to the opposite of something that really irritates you about LinkedIn.
Well, I mean, I think I without, sort of using the crutch of something I've already said, I do like the idea that it is essentially, like I called it, a fast moving stream, right?
Yeah.
There is a constant opportunity to see what people are saying about themselves, about their industry. And the platform allows for the kind of interaction you want with, thankfully, minimal amount of the not so pleasant parts of
the purely social, which can be
the not so pleasant parts of Facebook, Instagram,
etc. So it could be the political, it could be the memes, it could be purely family social stuff, like whatever.
That's right, and people have frankly done a decent job of staying on point, because I'm not sure that the LinkedIn people can really manage it so much.
Yeah, it's a self-policing platform. Like, everyone knows that this is a workplace environment. So,
and I'm happy to hear that people are excited that their kid got into, some program, or they won the ice skating trophy or whatever, or they show me a picture of their dog once in a while.
Yeah.
On balance, it's stayed reasonably pure, and I think to me, that's valuable. It's
to the credit of LinkedIn. Obviously, Microsoft bought LinkedIn, but it's also credit to the users, the members like us. And there's more of everyone on Facebook and any other social media. There are more lawyers on Facebook, but when they're family people, right? I got nothing to say on Facebook that I would say on LinkedIn. I wouldn't say that. Yeah, and exactly. They're purposely two different environments, and the social media is so, to use the word, competitive, crowded. They're all trying to sort of do the same thing in different ways. So when Facebook does something, or they'll borrow an idea or steal an idea from TikTok or Instagram, Twitter, they're all kind of fighting it out. But you have LinkedIn here in a separate category that, it's social media, but it's professional, right? So it's meant to be more of a workplace, more of a conference. It's more appropriate to have a professional photo and a headshot, rather than, like, let's say on Facebook, for you to have your professional glamour shot looks odd. But on vice versa, right? It's you're not gonna have yourself on shorts in a beach on LinkedIn. Like, that's not appropriate, unless it was like a corporate retreat or something where there was a workplace environment. So that's great. Yeah, it's why I do appreciate LinkedIn. That when I go on and I log on, and I'm not nearly as addicted to LinkedIn as I am on Facebook because of the social reasons, but it's almost it's a relief, because it's like I'm in the office and I can be kind of among work colleagues.
That's right.
That aspect, it's a separation that I appreciate. What's something that you don't appreciate about LinkedIn that kind of gets on your nerves?
I wish you were a little less opaque in terms of how to do better, quote unquote. Now that I'm trying to be that person, right? Because I guess you probably have the statistics. I don't really know them for sure, but 80% of the people are the people who once in a while post a link about something about business, or tell a quick story that, hey, we just sold this property, that's great. And that's all great. But once you've made the commitment to try and be a little more present and drive your traffic and use it in the way that we're talking about, right?
Thought leadership, personal branding, expertise.
The tools and the algorithms for success are it's a real black box. Maybe they want it that way. Yeah, I would almost say that it's kind of, that's their secret sauce. Google has their algorithm, Facebook has their algorithm. But they don't really even kind of give you out any breadcrumbs. Crumbs, right? Yeah, which they could do more of, because it would encourage those of us. Right. Tell us what it is that you want us to do. Right. And if you're going to reward us for that by increasing our exposure, I'll do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But don't make me figure it out, right? It's so hard to figure out.
It's funny that you say that, Andy, because it is very opaque. It's created this cottage industry of professionals like Mark and Jay. I'm in that world to some extent. So it's created this cottage industry that could honestly make our lives on the marketing side easier. And then on both of our sides of creators of content, yeah, absolutely makes sense for them to kind of give us at least like some kind of a roadmap, a checklist, and a sneak peek into the algorithm, because it doesn't need to be so secret as, let's say, with Google, where they don't want people gaming the system. Obviously,
right.
people do it for search engine.
And we are all trying to game the system. That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah, but we would game it with content.
It has a negative
game
connotation.
It doing the right things.
Yeah, I mean, it has a negative connotation to say game the system.
Sure.
But we're all trying to make ourselves get the most productivity out of it, I guess.
Yeah, we want it to be as effective as possible.
And I'm not asking them to publish the whole algorithm. I'm just saying, look, let's not make this a dating ritual.
Right.
If there's something you think you want to see more of because it's going to help you, and you're going to help me if I do it, tell me what it is you want, and I'll help you.
And it is a win-win, right? Because the more results very similar to the positive reinforcement you got sort of randomly, the more positive reinforcement we all get, the more we want to spend time on LinkedIn. And we're not really their customer.
Let me give you a quick example. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So they've done this thing in the last year or so with the polls, right?
Yeah.
Polls are everywhere. Well, it's not entirely clear. Like, do they like you to do polls? Are you going to get more take up of polls, or is it just a tool that if you want to fool around with it?
Yeah.
A lot of people hate polls. A lot of people think people are doing polls just to do polls, right? So it's, I don't know. I mean, just give us a little more something about why you should do a poll and what polls they want to see, and
Yeah, and it's funny that you say this. No one's actually ever mentioned this, and this is great. So, when you I don't know if you remember, but when you fill out a profile, when you redid it with Mark, they give you some type of a score or a kind of
quality score, how filled out. That's a perfect example, right?
Right.
That's
an example of where they've made it fun and interesting, and knowing where you are in the process of how complete you are.
And there is this thing called the social selling score I've seen, but I'm not entirely sure what it means. It's just a number.
I mean, they break it down, but it means very, very little. But they could very similarly use both templates to drive our behavior and say, look, if you develop these behaviors or habits or whatever they call it, then this is what our algorithm looks for. So go ahead and, maybe they won't say game the system, but go ahead and follow the rules, play the game, do it in a good way.
And similarly, this isn't as much, I guess it's in the same vein. There's not a lot of value in the information they give you back. You can subscribe to something like Shield.
Yeah.
And that's helpful.
Well, actually, I don't know Shield.
Oh, you should. Yeah, Shield is a tool that you pay for that allows you to sort of see your LinkedIn performance on posts. You should check it out.
It's not every day that I learn about a new tool, Andy. I appreciate. Yeah, is it called? Do you know the web address?
Shield.
All right, cool. Shield. If I type in Shield LinkedIn, I'm sure I'll find it.
And you can compare periods of time, views, followers, engagement level, stuff like that.
Yeah, I like
LinkedIn could do that a million times better and more if they wanted to, but they obviously have chosen that's not something they're interested in.
Not yet. Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Because they have way more data that they could give you back, and Shield's only able to give you what LinkedIn's given them.
Right. Yeah, we're API partners. We're automation partners with LinkedIn because part of Video Social is our posting automation, but it posts video, and we get very minimal information back. So the fact that Shield's even able to access some other information, I'd like to.
I'm not sure they're necessarily getting anything that you can't get.
Yeah, but nonetheless, they're using.
They figured out how to mine backwards. They can go backwards and see stuff.
Yeah. I'll take a look at that. And so you use it, right? It sounds like.
Yeah, I've tried it. I'm not sure necessarily I'm going to keep it because I'm not. I tried it for a while to see, how
you've grown.
I'm not trying to be an advertisement for them here, but you can tag your own posts.
Sure.
So then you can filter and say, show me all the posts that posted at 9 a.m. and compare them to the ones that posted at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Or posts I posted about legal information versus posts I posted about, I don't know, whatever category you want to put it in. Renewable energy versus venture capital versus real estate. You can tag all your posts with multiple tags and then filter and look at groups.
And then you can kind of look at the metrics and make the metrics make more sense.
Yeah.
Cool. I will take a look at it.
There's way more data than that LinkedIn probably has that they're not
even giving, right? They're not giving it to Shield, but they could be giving it to us. And it could be even a part of premium membership, right? Do you pay for LinkedIn or are you on the free?
I do not.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm on the paid because it's what I do as a professional. But that could be a lure.
That's right.
That's their business, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, hey, you want the data, you want good behavior, pay us money. So that's great. Andy, how can people get a hold of you and ask you questions?
I mean, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. You can go to our website if you want to learn a little bit about more about the firm at greenherlocker.com. And that's green with an E, GREENEHURLOCKER. Or just find me on LinkedIn.
That makes most
sense. That's the best way.
Well, this has been exciting. This has been a lot of fun. Very insightful with different apps that you were mentioning, and of course your anecdote. So keep up the good behavior of blogging just about every day on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you'll venture into the world of video. We'll see what we can do together with that. And this has been great. This has been another episode of LinkedIn for Lawyers. It's true stories of client acquisition told by attorneys like Andy Brownstein. You can catch us just about every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, through LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. You can subscribe there. You could also listen on Stitcher, which I personally listen to, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, Apple Podcasts. Again, my name is Vikram Rajan, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.